Seems to be it was just one of those days when everything was pretty good except for the outcome.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Bama Online is Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We'll talk about FanDuel in just a little bit. I want to thank you everydayers for being here every day. Thank you newbies for being here today, and thank everybody for making this your first listen every day. Jimmy, I went live last night. Talked about the game for a couple of segments because I just, when we lose, I really hate not doing a live show because I feel like it makes us look like fair weather fans. And so I want to go take my medicine. And frankly, I know you were there last night too at the game. First of all, kudos to the crowd. I thought the crowd was excellent. I thought that the attendance was amazing. The energy was great. When Sears hit that three to tie it up, I mean, the roof almost came off, probably literally, because it's kind of an old stadium. And I was impressed with a lot of things from that game from our fans. Mm-hmm. But what I was worried about, Jimmy, and I guess I'm still worried about it to a degree, that the way our basketball fans are, and this is not all of you, so not all of you need to get offended. Some of you might need to get offended. That it's almost like they go out of spite sometimes to basketball, I feel like. Like, all right, I'm going to go, but watch, we won't win. And a lot of crossed arms and crossed legs, and I didn't see that at this game. But what I told our buddy Michael Southern, who I went to the game with, who's just a fabulous dude, I told him that this is not the end of the world. Before the game, I said, it's not the end of the world if we win or lose. It's not the end of the world if we were to get blown out. But because the way basketball is set up, we got a lot of opportunities. But what I worry about is the mindset of the fan base. And at some point, some of these folks who maybe don't understand basketball as much, the nature of basketball versus the nature of football, I think they're going to have to say, okay, we lost at home, to an Ole Miss, or we lost at home to Auburn or whatever, and we still got a heck of a team, and we still win the national championship. Some of the gloom and doom I heard after this particular game disturbs me.
Well, I'm sure it's the same with sports fans at every school and every pro team. There's an overreaction when things don't go well. I think that's just sort of commonplace in sports. I don't know that Alabama is any worse than anywhere else. There's certainly an overreaction to the loss in the sense that, Auburn's, the number one for a reason. They're the best team in the country. I thought there was a lot of good that came from last night in the loss myself, including hey, look, this is where we are and this is where we need to be. If we want to win the national championship, we've got to change some things and do things better. Obviously, I think it was a great lesson for the players that, hey, you're not where you need to be if you want to lift that trophy at the end, and this is what we've got to do. But I mostly credit Auburn as just being an outstanding team. But there were things Alabama could do better. Come on. Alabama shot 20% from three. That's not normal for this team, especially the way they've been shooting it lately. That's not a normal night. Auburn shot 40%. I'm not sure that's a normal night for them. I think it was a night that they shot it really well and Alabama didn't. And that sort of told most of the story. Secondly, Janai Broome, I think he's a really difficult matchup. I think Alabama did okay with him at times. But then there are times when he's just a really gifted kid for such a big guy. He had a good night, I thought, even though he's clearly not 100%. He was limping around for a while. And thirdly, this is what I'll say that's really big to me about the history about yesterday. Biggest game in the history of the state of Alabama. I really believe that. I think this Auburn team is better than the Auburn team that went to the Final Four 5 years ago. This Auburn team's better than their Final Four team. I think Alabama's better than their Final Four team. I mean, that's some high-level basketball right there. These are two teams that not only are capable of getting the Final Four, they're better than their most recent teams that were the greatest in school history. So there's going to be more colossal matchups going forward. I don't know if it's going to be between these two teams or not. But I'll tell you, lastly, I will say, going into yesterday morning, I'd have told you Alabama's going to win in Tuscaloosa and Auburn's going to win in Auburn. I'm not waving the white flag about that game at Auburn. All that really needs to happen for Alabama to win that game is a little bit of the reverse of what happened last night. Alabama has a great shooting night, which is extremely possible, and Auburn's a little off, which is extremely possible. By the way, they've lost at home. They lost to Florida at home. They could lose again.
I'm 100% on board, and I want to get more into the game probably in the second segment. I guess, and I'm not sitting here trying to admonish other fans or tell fans how to be or anything like that. I'm just saying that, man, everybody did such a good job yesterday. Don't let the fact that they lost to the number one team in the country when we didn't play well and they played better than they have lately, discourage you from showing up like that again next Saturday. But that's what I'm getting at. And again, I'm not trying to sit here and just slap a ruler on all the fans' hands, because I'm giving a ton of credit here. Man, I'll tell you something else. There weren't a lot of Auburn people in that facility. I was right there. I looked around. I kept looking for the big packs of Auburn people that I've seen in other facilities, other arenas this year. They weren't there. Now, they had some. Of course they had some.
There were a few.
But there was talk like, oh, we're going to have 2,500 fans there. That was not the case at all. And I'm glad that Alabama fans sort of cut that off. I don't know if Greg Byrne had anything to do with that in terms of, hey, quit selling your ticket. I don't know if he had I don't know what the cause was. It doesn't matter to me. I'm proud of the fan base for what they did. I want to continue to be proud because I want them to continue to keep it up, because I'll tell you something. It's a lot more fun in there when the fans are into it like they were. The one other negative, and I feel like I got to say it, I said it last night, whatever, 3 morons threw cups onto the court, and I was right there beside the student section. The student section was great, and I said this last night, and I still mean it. I don't mind so much the F Auburn chants. I mean, yeah, if you got little kids, I understand that it gets under your skin a little bit, but we also do Dixieland Delight, and it's just part of it. And frankly, when kids go to games now, they're going to hear a lot of stuff, whether it's from the student section or somebody else. Maybe it's not choreographed as much as that was, but you're going to hear a lot of stuff. So the F Auburn stuff has been around for a while. I've heard bad stuff at Auburn. I've heard bad stuff at Tennessee. I've heard it everywhere. It just, maybe I'm a little numb to it. But when you throw stuff onto the court, you're out of your dang mind. What the heck's wrong with it? Not only that, it was at a time when we were making a run. We were doing well. There was no controversial call at the time. I looked over. I saw the first one hit the floor, and I looked over, and I saw 2 other ones coming. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with y'all?
They should be banned. They should find out who did it, ban them, because they got video, ban them. They can't come to games anymore. I mean, that's a pretty simple fix to me. If you can ascertain who did it, is they're just banned. They can't come to the games because everybody else is trying to enjoy the game, and that's dangerous. It's dangerous. First of all, it's dangerous to both Alabama and Auburn players on the court. There's just no space for that in sports.
What were you hoping to accomplish? That you do that and somehow our team is more fired up than they were in that moment?
The officials changed their minds about their last 5 calls.
Which, I'll tell you something else that I guess made me think maybe the officials did all right, because watching the game from where I was, and again, I sat with our buddy Michael Southern, who's got great seats, and Auburn got to play pretty physical, I thought.
Did Michael go to the game day thing?
Huh?
Did Michael go to game day earlier in the morning?
No. I don't think so.
Okay.
I wasn't there with you. Doesn't matter. The thing is, if you're allowed to play pretty physical, I think that really behooves Auburn and hurts us. And so be it. But I had a couple of Auburn fans text me, go, this is the worst officiating I've ever seen. And I was like, well, I don't know. Number one, I wouldn't call it the worst officiating I've seen. Secondly, as an Alabama fan, I was also complaining, so maybe the refs did their job. But then when I finally left the stadium and I thought, that's the second 3-hour basketball game Alabama's been a part of. That shouldn't happen.
I think some of it was just ESPN being the biggest game of the day, and I think there was more commercials than normal. I think that's part of it. But I also think there was a later start to. I mean, it seemed to me that the game didn't start. The game didn't start at 3-0.
It may have been delayed a bit because I think the other game ran into it. But
and the game day guys, Reese and crew did, pregame, halftime. They're doing a spot literally from on the floor pregame and halftime. And I think it all added up to where I'm not.
Let's cut a little bit. And again, we know Reese Davis. He's a buddy, and he has no control over this. But let's cut a little bit of that out, ESPN. We can't make a regular season college basketball game as important, even as important as a regular season NFL or college football game, because it's not. That just by nature. So cut a little bit of this out. I mean, the game day, I think they started game day even an hour early. And I was like, we don't need 2 hours of college basketball game day. We need an hour of it. That's all we need. In football, it's different. It's just everything about football is longer and every play is more meaningful. In basketball, you can lose to Arkansas Little Rock the first game of the year and still win the national championship.
It's a good lesson about how college football's got the greatest still has the best regular season in all of sports. College basketball is 100% postseason. 100% postseason. I mean, I would say the regular season's fine and it's fun and it's a lot of basketball and it's fun to watch if you're into basketball, but the season is defined by what happens in March. Defined entirely by that.
Talking a little FanDuel now because we appreciate him so much being such a great sponsor. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or tickle-off, either way, boy,
wow.
what a fun game that'd be.
What a rule change.
All right, the team that laughs last gets the ball. You just tickle them. Want to bet on, or if you want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. I've done that before, and it's a ton of fun. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get 150 smacks and bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com. No codes, no nothing. Just go to FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
We used to say that really the idea of our show is it's kind of like me and you talking on the phone, just having a conversation about Alabama on the phone, but we just happen to record it and share it with people.
And do video.
That's kind of the idea. What would be cool is what we should have done in the old days is have a phone conversation about the team. It's just a phone call, but during the conversation, do live reads for commercial spots.
I might just do that with friends and see if we get paid. That was the thing we did when we started talking Tuscaloosa. We just started reading Pringles ads that I completely made up.
We should have picked cooler. We should have picked cooler, better fake sponsors, though.
Why we picked Pringles is still
we could have picked like Rolex or Mercedes.
Well, I think we were aiming low because we knew we had a very little shot at success.
Never got a free can of Pringles out of that. Unbelievable.
All right, so the game wise, a couple of things. I think some of our guys are going to look. If people want to say Auburn played too physical, so be it. I think our guys got to get a little stronger about some of that. I just do. Look, yeah, I think Janai Broome probably hooks a little bit more than your average big man. I think it's smart. I was a big man when I played all the time, and if you would let me get away with getting my elbow around you, I'm going to do it. And so if he does it and it doesn't get called, all the whining in the world ain't going to do a thing. And so I just think our guys got to get a little better. Now, we did get better, I thought, as the game went on. There were actually a couple of blocks when we came over to double team, very sneakily, I might add. I don't think Janai Broome knew we were coming to double team. He sort of had that thing where he was going right, turns back left, and then Mo Diabate or Cliff Amore would come over.
This improved Janai Broome because he's better than he was last year. He's a better player. He's better. Improved. Janai Broome would have murdered us last year. I mean, we did a better job on him than we would have last year. In part, that's due to Cliff Amory's presence. And Amory, I thought, defended him okay at times. And Diabate defended him okay at times. But overall, he's just, I mean, you know, he's gonna out-muscle even big guys, and smaller guys just have no chance. But he's also got a pretty sweet-looking shot.
He has great touch. Now, the other thing, and again, this is just one of those things. This is nobody's fault. Auburn got every roll on the rim, and ours rolled off like I've never seen before. Mo Diabate had at least two that got on the rim, rolled around, and usually when it does that, it's just physics brings it in. But it sort of, and he was like, hey, what's going on over here? And it went to the right. I was like, what in the world? We just couldn't get, but I'll tell you something that was cool. The one time we did get a roll was on Amory's sort of kind of dunk where he got fouled off an alley-oop, and the ball sat on the rim and then finally dropped in. It was like Tiger Woods' putt with the Nike symbol on it. It just sat there and then fell in. And that's when I thought, okay, we got a good shot at this thing. I'd been worried before because every time we got close, they'd push it back to 9. And again, give them a lot of credit for that. And when Sears took the 3 and tied it up, and then we came down and had a shot at another 3 to take the lead, that's where I think we lost it. There was somebody else who also brought up a good point to me. He said, look, we started out 9-0 and we lose by 9 points. And I think we lost the first part of the game. We lost the last part of first half, lost the first part of the second half, and then lost the last part of the game. The key elements of the game, everything else in between, we were fine. But I think Auburn did a good job of owning those.
They started out 9-0. We eventually tied the game. But once we tied the game and it was tied, they went on another 9-0 run. There's that 9 again that we just couldn't match. And ultimately, they won by 9. But Alabama was not run out of that building. I thought in some ways Alabama matched Auburn. They out-rebounded Auburn. Auburn's a good rebounding team. Alabama out-rebounded Auburn. I think they outscored Auburn in the paint, even though they have Broome and Chad Baker-Mazara and Cardwell, and you know they got some big dudes. But Alabama outscored them in the paint, out-rebounded them. Just in the end, they shot 40% from 3, and Alabama shot 20%. And if you reverse that number, Alabama wins the game, of course. So that's what I'm going to watch for the rematch at Auburn to end the regular season is going to be Alabama's got a shot, but they got to reverse what happened in Tuscaloosa from beyond the arc. Alabama's got to
hit something. You can't go 5 of 26.
No, Alabama's got to shoot 40%, and you got to hope Auburn shoots less than 30%. You continue to have the same success in the paint and rebounding and not let Janai Broome dominate the game. And, you know, he's probably going to be a healthier guy, 3 weeks from now.
Well, look, one other thing. I had some folks ask me why Aiden Sherrill wasn't in the game. And my take on that is I don't know that Aiden Sherrill is ready to take on Cardwell or Broome. And those are the only 2 guys I think he could have guarded. And Cardwell and Broome are older. They're strong. Aiden Sherrill is young. And while he may look older, he's not. He's young. And he's still got some baby giraffe in him where it's like he's not moving correctly. And also Darian Reed came back. And while he was not bad, I mean, I wouldn't say he was.
He wasn't impactful.
He wasn't impactful. And the other thing that, again, another way that we got close and then sort of boofed it, we're about to tie it up. I can't remember. I'm not going to rewatch the game because we lost. I don't rewatch losses. But whenever, and I talked about this last night, whenever Grant Nelson decided, hey, I know the dunk contest is later tonight, but why don't I take off from about, 3/4 court and see if I can dunk it from there? And I said it last night that he got midair and it was like Wile E. Coyote after he misses the Roadrunner and he runs off the cliff and he's still running in air. And then he holds up a sign that says, help. I mean,
he left Earth too soon.
He left Earth way too soon. And it would have been, look, if there was nobody in the gym, he wasn't making it. But
he had visions of owning Sports Center.
Oh.
He had vision. He's like, That was the idea. Is like, I am about to own sports. This is going to be on a loop all night, and I'm going to win the dunk contest.
And he would have.
And he would have.
The reason he couldn't is it's impossible to do what he did. It's impossible.
Had he managed to float in the air like Michael Jordan, he would have. Unfortunately, he floated in the air like Michael Scott from The Office.
Michael Jordan couldn't have made that dunk. It's not. I watched the dunk contest. Mac McClung is a wildly high jumping fool. I've never seen anything like that. There was a guy doing a hoverboard, holding the ball, and he jumped over him while he was rotating, and then got another ball that was on the rim and dunked them both. It was freaky, man. And even he was like, Grant Nelson, what are you doing? But Grant had 12 rebounds last night. I pulled those stats up. I was like, what? I mean,
we turned Grant into a hard hat. I mean, Mo Diabate, will own the hard hat forever, but it should be the Mo Diabate Memorial Hard Hat Trophy. But Grant Nelson plays hard. I mean, he gets after it.
Well, he does, but maybe I need him to play a little more under control, because he had 2 times, man, there was one time where Jared Stevenson got so open on some kind of backdoor pick, and Grant just wasn't looking. And I mean, it happened sort of right in front of me. I was like, oh, God, pass that ball. Well, then instead of even passing it to him, he tried to do a lot of dribbling and a lot of driving, and he ended up on his took-us because he just sort of slipped and fell down. Maybe it was from one of the cokes that people threw. No, this is in the first half. But, that's another thing. But even if he had gotten it to Jared Stevenson, there ain't no guarantee it was going to be made, because Jared Stevenson also had a great play underneath the basket, steals the ball, turns around, you lay it in. I think the lead's cut to 3. It may have been cut to 5 or whatever. It was in that neighborhood. It was still within reach. And it just goes ding, ding, ding. And I mean,
we missed some bunnies last
night. We were 11
night.
of 25 is the stat I saw, Jimmy, from layup level. That's ridiculous.
Well, there's a difference in the game right there, if that's true. Because that stats, I mean, I know we missed a few, but that stat's sort of stunning.
Yeah, it is. Want to thank everybody who did come up to me and ask. I told one guy last night, and he actually came in on the chat that the live broadcast. I said, one guy just came up to me, slapped me on the shoulder, and goes, "You're on mute." I was like, "You do watch the show." But Jimmy,
I had a couple of myself. Even sat next to Michael and watches the show. Thanks a lot, buddy. And fun stuff.
All right, so we do want to talk some more basketball. I don't know how much more we want to talk about this game, but we do. What I want to talk about on the next show is, here's the important thing, Jimmy. We can't let Auburn beat us twice in a row, meaning not now in March 8th. I'm talking about don't lose this game and then lose at Missouri. Missouri just became a huge game, and Missouri's tough, and it's an 8 o'clock Wednesday game. It's going to be tough, but I do want to talk a little football in the sense that there's been some interesting developments. There's some new offers out, and there's also a pretty big reclassification of a kid named Booby Feaster out of Texas, right? Wide receiver. A lot of people think he was going to be the number 1 wide receiver in the 27 class. We're seeing kind of a trend. I think a huge tight end is reclassified to 26 from 27, who's going to be the number 1 tight end, and then EJ Crowell. Whatever. EJC. You down with EJC? Yeah, you know me because I can't say his last name. How about that? EJC has reclassified. So the top wide receiver, tight end, and running back have all reclassified. Now, Alabama's in on 2 of them, I know of. I don't know if they're in on the tight end as much, but
they are.
But the thing about Booby Feaster that's interesting. So there's now Alabama's got a lot of wide receivers out there, and it's sort of, I'm not saying they can just pick and choose who they want, but we need to be selective, because I've been on the Cedarian Morgan train this whole time. And while I would love to get Booby Feaster, I would love it. I really want to get that in-state win for Cedarian Morgan. Plus, I think he's great. So I really want to see that. But there's some other guys we've offered in-state that haven't been maybe properly ranked yet that I think are very good. And boy, it's another one of those years where you got a bunch of good dudes, and maybe you can't go wrong. At the same time, I don't want to miss out on any of them.
Well, it's a great reason. What we're talking about here, what Luke's talking about, is a great reason as to why we're asked. Alabama's offered the Spain Park wide receiver, Barber, Corey Barber, I think his name is, Corey Barber. And it's like, well, why aren't they pushing? I mean, because you watch the tape and you're like, wow, this guy looks really good. Why aren't they pushing for him? Well, it's because all these other national elite guys are out there, and you're still working on what are our odds of sign. You don't want to take a couple of in-state guys who are pretty good, squeezing yourself out of having room for these, because you can't sign 6 receivers in a class or 5 receivers when really what you want is right around 3, I think, in this group. So you do have to be selective. And you can't offer kids who will accept upon offers, like the Kramer scene in Seinfeld when they offered him the settlement after he spilled the hot coffee on himself, and they were going to offer him free coffee for life and a bunch of money. And as soon as they offered him free coffee for life, he stood up and said, "I'll take it."
Yeah,
that's what happens when you offer some in-state kids. They'll immediately hop on it because Alabama's kind of the dream school for them if they grew up here. So that's why you have to be a little selective about who you're pushing for early and kind of slow play, I guess is the term some people used to use, slow play some kids. It's not that they're not good. They're really good, but you're kind of hopeful for a Booby Feast or Tristan Keys, even in-state C.D. Morgan, who's not a guy who slow play. He's national elite. He just happens to be from Alexander City.
I know we always equate these to Seinfeld or Simpsons, but there is also a real life thing like that. One time when I was very young, I was probably 17. I had a buddy. We were in Ellick City, and he was. We were with some other friends. I show up late, and my friend is with a girl that is. Let's just say she was appearance challenged. I don't know what the PC ugly is, but she
ourselves.
And so I said, Stu, I show up and it's probably the most rude thing I've ever even said, but I couldn't help it. I thought she deserved to know, hey, you need to go home and work on some stuff, but so I said, Stu,
again.
I looked at, oh, wait a minute. Did I say the name of the guy?
What was your fake name?
It's a fake name.
That was your fake name.
I am using a fake name. I'm teasing. I'm using a fake name. So, and I said, man, you aren't. There's no way you're drunk enough for this yet. And remember, we're all 17. And he looked at me and he looked back at her and he said, if things don't get better, I will be. That's the way I think a lot of these wide receiver offers are. It's you look over there and go, I like this guy. This guy's sort of in the bag, but I'm kind of aiming for somebody over there. But if things don't work out, now these receivers aren't ugly; they're great. I'm just saying, it's on a different scale. That's the same way it was.
And you can't.
Also, I just like your story.
You can't just. Some people just think it's okay to oversign. You make room. Yeah, you can make room, but there's limits to that. There's limits to it. You can't make infinite room. You have to have a plan of signing what amounts to a complete team. And if you take, also, there's this. You take 2 or 3 wide receivers, and now you want to sign that 4th one. The 4th one's I don't want to be one of 5 receivers in my signee group. How am I going to get enough balls when I got 5 guys in my own group showing up at the same time, So you do have to be selective. It's not, and recruiting is always, particularly in the age of the transfer portal, Luke, recruiting is always about quality, not quantity. It's not a race to sign 35 guys. Who cares if you sign 35 guys and you beat Troy and Arkansas State and Louisiana Monroe to sign all of them? It's not about 35 guys. It's about 25 of the right guys. It's quality, not quantity.
Yeah. And again, the other thing is in recruiting, you got to be so careful now, because what if you're saying, okay, we're going to take 4 receivers. And we've convinced them all that they need to come to Bama. And then the last day, a bunch of coaches come and say, number 1, we're going to give you more money. Number 2, how are they going to throw the ball enough to you guys? And they go, oh, yeah. And then next thing you know, you're left with some people that you didn't want as high on your list when you had 2 higher ones. And if you just left them alone, you get them.
Right.
Recruiting such a cluster right now. So,
and you started out by talking about reclassifications. We talked about early on here when NIL started, when NIL began, we said, hey, this is coming. The Ryan Williams thing is not an outlier. Reclassifications are going to be the new thing, and it's 100% NIL. It's these high school kids that don't want to wait for their payday, and that's exactly what's going on. It's no different than college kids that give up their eligibility to go pro early in the NFL draft. That's a financial decision. That's what these high school kids are doing now. They're literally turning pro early. That's what's going on.
There's no doubt. All right, we'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.